Oh, can't you see? We're running out of time. You gotta lose your mind if you think you're doing fine. You can't describe it yet, but something is wrong. Where are your dreams now, and why don't you feel strong? Yeah, yeah. Every day, every night you try to find yourself. Don't live your life as someone else.
Right, peeps. Welcome to another installment of the podcast. Now, this week, you're going to get 2 episodes. Because last week, after the show, after the WrestleMania review that I did, my mind went blank on creativity for the show. So I thought about it, and this week you've got 2 episodes. You've got one now, and you've got another one coming up as well. So just look out for that. It's an Easter bonanza, let's just say it. 2 for the price of 1 here on Easter, just to make up for lost time. Because literally after I did the first episode, after I did that WrestleMania prediction show on the WrestleMania show and everything, apologies if it's a little edited wrong or anything like that, but you got to see the show, so it is what it is. And yeah, my mind went completely blank on creativity of what to talk about and what I can put on the podcast. So, with that being said, today we're going to talk about ECW, because this past Wednesday, which I believe was the 13th, yeah, that was when ECW was there. I believe it was our 20th anniversary for ECW. So let me just check this quickly. And when was ECW? ECW. April 13th, 1997. Oh. April 13th, 1997. So it was an anniversary on Wednesday of ECW's very, very first pay-per-view. And boy, did they build this thing up. You know, they built it up. Even co-promoting with WWE at the point when they invaded Raw as well. But this, I compared this ECW show to WrestleMania 1. That was when WWE itself, World Wrestling Entertainment, Vince McMahon in general, put they did the pay-per-view, and he put everything on the line. And if WrestleMania didn't work, he'd have probably went bust. That's what the case was with Heyman and ECW as well. That was the case with Heyman and ECW. So yeah, it was mental. And I've seen the pay-per-view. I've seen the thing. I had it on video as well at one point, and it was the night Terry Funk won the title. That's right. Just to, I think it was ECW's way of saying thank you to Terry Funk. Because if it wasn't for Terry Funk, there'd have been no ECW. The amount of people he came in and put over and all that. So there was 2 matches on the card that I didn't know about until I've seen this on Wikipedia. Chris Chetti and JT Smith versus the full-blooded Italians, Guido and Tommy Rich. This was the ECW pre-show, by the way. And Louis Piccoli and Balls Mahoney. Probably a very young, up-and-coming Balls Mahoney. Not the guy he eventually turned into. And yeah, Chris Chetti versus JT Smith against the full-blooded Italians. Wow, the full-blooded Italians went on the show, I don't know. Because they became an established tag team. And I think that might have got to the point, you know, where JT Smith broke away from the full-blooded Italians, because JT Smith was a full-blooded Italian at one point as well. But the main show kicked off with Eliminators John Cronus and Perry Saturn taking on the Dudley Boys. It was a good match to kick off. I believe it was more of a tornado match than it was a tag match. But the Eliminators won it and won the World Tag Team titles. Now, in a match that was meant to be, I believe it was meant to be Chris Candido and Lance Storm. This was well before they had their rivalry in 98 and had their match in 1998 at the Heatwave 98. I think these were just two guys at the time looking to get on pay-per-view. It was meant to be Chris Candido and Lance Storm, but Chris was injured. So they got in Rob Van Dam. And Rob Van Dam ended up beating Lance Storm. But he was pissed because he felt he should have been on the pay-per-view, and he let it rip after the match, which led to what happened later on in the show. Great Sasuke, Gran Amada, and Yakoshiji, I can't pronounce that name for shit, Masato, let's just call him that, take on BWO members, Taka Michinoku, Terry Boy, and Dick Togo. This was BWO. Blue World Order. This was Japan's version of Blue World Order, just like WCW did, because Blue World Order was a rib. Because Blue World Order was a rib. It was a rib on NWO. And yeah, it was Taka Michinoku, Terry Boy, and Dick Togo. I believe this was Taka's... I believe this might very well have been Kind Time. Before they were Kind Time. Taka Michinoku, this was before he went to WWE and became the light heavyweight champion. I believe the very first light heavyweight champion. This might have been one of his last appearances in ECW as well, because I believe he won the light heavyweight title that year at the end of the ND Generation X in Your House, if I remember correctly. But yeah, and I said this many times, man, it was a fast-paced match, great match, and towards the end, it just got flat. It started getting flat to the point where I believe fans were like, "Is this over now? Can this be over now, please?" And it did. I mean, it was a great match, but towards the end, it was like, okay, it's run its course now. Let's get it over with. The feud with Shane Douglas and Pitbull 2 for the World Television title. This building up from what happened with Gary when Shane broke Gary's neck. And it just built on from here. And probably my favourite moment of the whole match was not the match itself, was the guy that came out wearing a mask, kissed Francine, and revealed himself to be Ravishing Rick Rude. And, and he also got Brian Lee to turn on the triple threat as well, because it was Brian Lee, Chris Candido, and Shane Douglas at this point. But it didn't work. But Brian Lee leaving paved the way for Bam Bam Bigelow to come in to be in the triple threat as well, which is pretty much a good replacement, if you ask me, as well. Now, the match that the pay-per-view was built on, somewhat, Taz and Sabu, this feud, good grief, this feud started well before they actually went ahead and built it for a year, basically, because these two were tag team champions at one point, and they couldn't stand one another. And Taz even admitted it in the Rise and Fall DVD. They couldn't stand one another, and they were tag team champions. And then Sabu went to Japan and all that, and got fired, and then came back in November, remember, 95, and blah, 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 blah. And then Paul Heyman came up with the idea, oh, let's make this match and let's make this feud building into the Barely Legal pay-per-view, which it worked. And both men, and even both, Taz said it himself, both men made each other in that match, which they did. And then Rob Van Dam comes out and helps Sabu. And then Fonzie turns on Taz and joins Sabu and Rob Van Dam. So, and then Rob Van Dam became the manager, and this is what led to the feud between Rob Van Dam, Sabu, and ECW, pretty much, because both of these guys ended up going on Raw, especially Rob Van Dam, you know, Mr. Monday Night, as well. That's where he got the name from. And yeah, it was crazy. Terry Funk, Sandman, and Stevie Richards with Tommy Dreamer on commentary. This is what this was for the number one contendership to the world title. Whoever wins this gets to face Raven, and Terry Funk ended up winning it. And then in probably what was the shortest world title match I've seen, probably one of the shortest world title matches I've seen, Terry Funk manages, a battered and bloody Terry Funk manages to get the victory and win the ECW world title. And eventually it ended up going off an end. And if you go back and watch the documentaries, they panicked because they thought they were going to go overtime, and there was a certain generator that was about to burst. And if that burst, it would have lost the feed. So they had to go out, and then when it eventually go out, the generator burst. Rest is history. And Gran Naniwa, spelled Naniwa, was the one who replaced the guy who I couldn't pronounce, so because he was injured. So yeah, it is what it is. At the end of the day, it is what it is. So yeah, all in all, it was a good pay-per-view, and it worked for ECW. It definitely worked for ECW. Definitely worked for ECW as well. And all three title matches were on the line. All three titles were on the line. ECW World Tag Team titles, ECW World TV title, and the World Heavyweight Championship 2. Three-way dance to determine number one contender for the world title, which ended up getting there. Singles grudge match involving Taz and Sabu. Pretty much a singles grudge match for the World TV title too. 6-man tag, singles match, random singles match, and then the singles and tag match on the pre-show as well. So yeah, it was all in all good pay-per-view. And yeah, this past week, April 13th, was the end and the way of saying ECW. You know, the anniversary of it. Wednesday, April 13th, 2022 was the anniversary. I don't know what year it was. I believe it may have been 25, but it was an anniversary of it. So yeah, and if you want to see that whole pay-per-view, go on the network or Peacock, wherever you may be, because it's on there as well. I might even go check it out after I've recorded this. So yeah, but stay tuned, ladies and gents. I will be back next time. This is it for the podcast. Also, I'm going to let you in on something right now. I'm already working on something. Not going to be straight away. I'm going to get a guest on the show. His name's Michael Larkin. And I've worked with him before. And we've still remained good friends to this very day. I'm going to get back on the saddle again and do some good stuff like we did before. Okay? No more bullshit. No more, people trying to step in the way and everything like that. No more Max promo podcast. I mean wrestling podcast, and that. No more any of that stuff. Just me and him shooting the breeze, bringing a podcast to you. I'm going to be doing his show. He's going to be doing mine, but that's all. It's going to be down the road as well. So yeah, and like I said, not Max Wrestling. Wow, Wrestling Matters podcast is what I meant to say. Wrestling Matters podcast, WM podcast, ladies and gentlemen, where wrestling matters and promos don't. So there you go. So that's the first one out the way, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm guessing this is probably going to go out on Monday, Easter Monday. So stay tuned. There will be another one on the horizon. There's 2 coming up. So I'm bringing 2 episodes of the podcast back to back as an Easter bonanza, ladies and gentlemen. But I'm not going to put them all into one. So yeah. So stay tuned, ladies and gents, and I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.
Can't you see?